welcome to the Daily Agenda. First of all, I'd like to start tonight by thanking everyone for hundreds of get well messages whilst I was in hospital. That was very much appreciated and gave me great courage and inspiration to bounce back and return to the Daily Agenda. I'm not sure I'm entirely ready to do that yet, pretty much on a daily basis. Perhaps we'll have to rename it the Weekly Agenda, as they said. Although I very much doubt that either. But this is a very interesting point as we come to the subject matter of tonight's podcast, i.e. stopping Tommy Robinson, the Israeli agent, doing so much harm in this country, all by design. So whilst I was sat in that hospital bed after surgery, doped up on morphine, one of his trolls, one of Tommy Tards, we call them, sent me a message saying, "I hope you drop dead." Fair enough, no problem at all. That is the measure of the scum that we're dealing with. Antisocial vermin, quite frankly. That's all they are. And that's exactly what you should expect from Tommy and his little fanboys. Because there is a whole litany of this type of bad behaviour, this abuse, this hate. And it also constitutes a malicious communication. Very clearly a malicious communication. It was actually intercepted by by YouTube and flagged up under hate crime. And obviously I reported it and the account was suspended. It was another one of those Heged accounts, anonymous profile, fake profile that all these cowards love to use. A friend of mine said, wouldn't surprise me if it was Tommy himself. Well, yes, of course, we know all about his scurrilous shenanigans, don't we? But that's the point I'm making. And it's not just about receiving messages like that. On the contrary, it's about the litany of organised criminality Team Tommy is involved in. Grifting, par excellence, we know this. It's well established. And then we have his deluded fanboys coming onto this channel and other channels and saying, "Oh, how can you prove this?" Well, the evidence is perfectly clear, isn't it? They've grifted millions over the years, affected absolutely no socio-political change with it whatsoever. Nothing, not one thing has changed in this country for the better. And they keep telling us, well, what have you changed? What have you done to change anything? Well, I'll shine the light straight back at you in the mirror. What has Tommy actually done to change anything? And the answer to that is nothing. He just grifted millions to live a luxurious lifestyle with, so that his kids can go to Selfridges on Oxford Street and buy £860 trainers and make videos on Instagram on a restricted account, which Armand Singapore was invited to, and obviously gloat about dollar sign, in it, bruv. Because that's all that motivates them is dollar sign, shekels, grubby little parasites living for money. Not for socio-political change. They're not trying to do what we're doing. Not in the slightest, in actual fact. And I've got all of those photographs sent by Harman Singapore. And none of it's surprising. And then we have his wife, Gemma, the fake ex-wife, because the divorce is not genuine in any way, shape or form. That was done purely to prevent Tommy from having to shell out hundreds of thousands of pounds in costs to the Syrian kid he was alleged to have smeared. I don't believe anything Tommy Robinson says about anyone or anything. I know he's an incurable liar, and I know all his fanboys are scumbags, quite frankly. Lying, low-life, trash. Let's just put it bluntly, the way it is, shall we? And that's the way I put it. And when they come onto this channel ranting about, "Oh, you're this and you're that, and you ain't done this and you ain't done the other," I mean, it's funny because I've noticed a very clear pattern over the last few months. So you put up a video about Tommy, and then you get a flock of these Heged accounts, fake profiles. They usually have between 0 and 8 subscribers, no published material, no comments of any description other than Tommy worshipping videos, okay? And they come on and say, "You're an irrelevant nobody, you're just a piece of shit, you've done nothing in life worth talking about. Tommy is the best, he's done this, he's done that, he's saved the nation, he's saved the white people, he's saved everything, and he's saved thousands of young girls from being raped." Meanwhile, back in reality, Tommy has achieved absolutely none of those things. But all of these Heged accounts are exactly the same, and the reason why is because they're all Israeli bots. They're from a bot farm. Okay? The vast majority of his online support is just Israeli bot farm. That's all they are. They're Israeli bots. because Tommy himself is an Israeli agent, as we know. If you look at the graphic, the thumbnail for this video is pointing towards the logo of Mossad. Now, at the moment in time, in fact, for some time in truth, he's had a former IDF soldier acting as his shadow, his bodyguard. Well, I'm sure he'll need that if he keeps inciting war against Iran in the way that he has, because I'm sure the Iranians won't take too kindly to what he's done. And of course, he's made himself a target. And why should we care? Because we don't care, in truth, what happens to Tommy Robinson. You know, we don't care in the slightest. The man is completely corrupt. He's totally fake. He's gathered together a movement of people who are just lost in a cult status. In fact, if you speak to Dean Neal, which I do frequently, Dean actually explained this to some experts recently on Tommy, that the problem with Tommy is that he's assembled a cult factory, and he's the cult leader, and they just worship him no matter what. And no matter what evidence you throw at them, in fact, you could have a video of Tommy committing the most atrocious crime against humanity, and they just say, "Oh no, that's AI. Tommy would never do that." That is the truth, you know. But the majority of people who attend these Unite the Cringendom rallies aren't of that mindset at all. A good 40% of them who went to the last one didn't go there for Tommy or even anything to do with Tommy's delusions. They went just to send a message to the government, i.e. that, to boost the numbers. Okay? And of course his delusion about 3 million people being there, well, 1 million was added with every line of cocaine that he snorted. That's what really happened. The true estimate is 230,000. The state estimates at 110,000, which is clearly untrue. Tommy's figure, 3 million, is massively untrue. A grotesque exaggeration. In his wildest dreams, he'd love that. Yeah, absolutely. His Israeli handlers really would love it. But in truth, it was about 230,000. And what we're dealing with here is someone who is not only dividing, as Steve Law says he's here to divide the nationalist community. Well, Tommy himself is not a nationalist. What he means by that is that Tommy is here to, like Nigel Farage, to siphon off support that would otherwise go to nationalists. And that is one of their specific objectives. It's the reason why they never stop ranting about nationalists, or ethno-nationalists as they call them. And the only reason we've had to use this term, ethno-nationalists, is to differentiate ourselves from these fake civnats, all of them literally Israeli bots. They're not in a bot farm factory, they're just Israeli bots up here, totally and utterly overwhelmed, overthrown. Whatever limited intellect they had has been totally and utterly twisted and turned against their own people, against their own race, against their own nation, into supporting Israel first, in it Brov Nagov, for the right amount of shekels, for a few shekels more. That's all it is with Tommy, quite frankly. Let's face it, if the Zionists didn't have huge sums of money to dole out, Tommy Robinson wouldn't be working for them. It's all about the money, huh? Pick a pocket or two. That's all Tommy's interested in, the artful dodger, or the artful dodgy one. And he is very artful at what he does, because the simple truth is he appeals to simple-minded people. And there are lots of very simple-minded people in this country. All you have to do is spout some patriotic sound bites, playing the imitation game to make yourself look like a nationalist, whilst claiming to be anti-racist at the same time, and wave some flags. And you've captured hundreds of thousands of dummies straight away, because that's all they are. They're lemmings, but it's the same old lemmings. The recycled lemming factory that's not actually expanding as such into any serious electoral base that anyone can think about or talk about. And that is the truth of the matter. And then we have this litany of crime that Tommy and his fanboys are carrying out across the country, threatening people, intimidating people, death threats, rape threats, doxing threats, threats of violence, inciting immigrant mobs to attack nationalists after doxing them. What, do you think we're just going to sit back and allow all of this to happen? We don't care about the Criminal Conduct Authority, and we don't give a shit about bent coppers either, who these people are working for and with. Their job is to keep us permanently divided and at war with each other. And Tommy Robinson is doing that specifically with full knowledge And he's being paid for it. And his ludicrous lies about, oh, I've never been paid by the Jews in it, bruv. You know what I mean? Honestly, you've just got to be completely and utterly simple, just an absolute simpleton to believe that is true. Just go away and do a modicum of research, and you'll find out all of his Jewish sponsors. And in fact, a couple of weeks ago, a woman exposed all of them on YouTube and received a massive backlash as a result of it. That's right, because they don't want the truth. They hate the truth. All they want to do is worship their little Irish con man who lives off donations, and obviously is funded by the Zionists. They're not purely funded by the Israelis, although they're all connected to Israel. And then, of course, there's all the people that have been intimidated and all the people that they've used. In essence, they're a grooming gang themselves. Tommy Robinson is the leader of a grooming gang. Think of the victims of the grooming gangs that they've exploited. Some of them even had sex with them. That's what scum they are, Thinking primarily about Danny Tomo, but not just him. It was a well-documented fact that Danny Tomo is a criminal lowlife of the lowest order. And, just look at his recent shenanigans with Raise the Colours and Operation Overlord too. My goodness. It's just a mockery of the original Operation Overlord, in truth. It's just disgraceful. Absolutely disgraceful behaviour, and resulted in exactly what we said it would. Allegations of fraud and theft against Danny Tomo, who was sent in there to do his usual disruptive action routine, and that's exactly what he did. Because this is what Tommy does. He uses his little minions to infiltrate other organisations. He tried it with South East Coastal Defence. And when the woman there, running that organisation, refused to back down and hand over the organisation to there, it was criminal threats, abuse, death threats. None of them prosecuted. Again, police not interested, because we're dealing with a covert human intelligence source, Stephen Yaxley Lennon, also known as Tommy Robinson. And the reason why this Israeli agent has to be stopped, because that's what he is. He is most definitely 100% unequivocally an Israeli agent. He's dividing everyone. He's got people at each other's throats, people who should not be at each other's throat. We should be united and working towards a common cause of remigration, stopping immigration and remigration, quite frankly. Now, Tommy also plays that imitation game as well, doesn't he? But he's never going to be a true remigrationist. And his current tour of Europe, funded by, he claims to be bankrupt. So where's the money come from to send him all over Europe if he's bankrupt? He can go into a pub and spend £100 on a bottle of champagne and then get refused service afterwards. It's quite an interesting stunt, wasn't it? But, excuse me, he's bankrupt. He's on the verge of bankruptcy again because the court is after him for over 100 grand, obviously. This is why he's pleading poverty, and also it needs to be done to fuel the grifting machine. But he can go all over Europe on a tour promoting Zio poison. That's right. And who's paid for it? Well, it's not Tommy Robinson, is it? Surely, because he's bankrupt, according to him. Or on the verge of bankruptcy, again, for the second time, or is it a third time? It's another scam, quite frankly. And of course, the fake ex-wife, Gemma, yes, she was struck off at company's house for 1.1 million in false accounting, and they couldn't prove where the money had come from. I can tell you where it come from for a fact. Grifting off docile lemmings who should know better and probably do know better, but just can't admit it to themselves that they're worshipping a criminal junkie working for the Israeli regime. Israel is not our ally. The Zionists are not our ally. They have never been such and never will be our allies. Okay? And this planned catastrophic war against Iran is a disaster of absolutely epic proportions, particularly in the socio-economic sense for us here. I can't say too much about it because it's YouTube that we're dealing with. I could go into it very, very specifically in expert detail, in truth, but not on YouTube. It won't be allowed. I can assure you that of a fact. But that's also part and parcel of the game that he's playing, and it's a very dangerous game because now he's captured the attention of people who really do want to be rid of Tommy Robinson. And the reason why we're stepping up the campaign against Tommy is specifically to stop him, to stop this horrible criminal grifting machine And the corruption literally is far worse than what any of us know. In fact, Dean Neal spoke about the corruption recently to someone I know. And in truth, even they were surprised about the extent of the corruption inside this cult, this mass formation psychosis. That's all it is. It's mass formation psychosis. Get the herd together to follow a con man controlled by a foreign government, okay, to achieve absolutely nothing by design. Does it remind you of Nigel Farage et al., Rupert Lowe, Ben Habib? The list is endless with these people. They're all working for the same people, singing from the same tune, and they're all designed to achieve exactly the same thing. Not an awful lot. No meaningful change of any description. And at the same time, they spend far too much time ranting about ethno-nationalists. If they spent no time at all ranting about ethno-nationalists, then we really wouldn't have a credible argument against them. But in truth, they're obsessed with ethno-nationalism. Absolutely obsessed with ethno-nationalism. And ranting about it because they're terrified of real nationalism coming to the surface and dominating the political hemisphere again. That's part and parcel. It's centrifugal, in truth, to the operation that they're involved in, is to suppress nationalism and suppress the national and instinctual will. In other words, to corrupt and divide nativism to ensure it can maintain no form of organised force or opposition to the globalists. And that's exactly what's happening with Tommy. And in truth, in the British context, Tommy is one of the best friends the globalists have ever had, because he's keeping everyone divided. And when little Tommy's gone, and he will be gone, I assure you of that, and he knows perfectly well that this is the year in which it's going to come to a head for him, well, then they'll try and impose someone else on us. And but in truth, will it ever really succeed? And then when fake Farage fails by design, which he will, because Reform UK, deep fake Reform UK, is basically set up to fail. All of these organisations are set up to fail. All of these centre-right grift machines are set up to fail. They're all safety valve operations, and they will achieve absolutely nothing. I know it's difficult for nationalists to play the waiting game, but it's not just a case that we just need to sit back and wait for them to fail. On the contrary, we need to be completely proactive in building nationalist organisations now in preparation for their failure. In the case of fake Farage, not an awful lot we need to do. He's totally controlled. He's a puppet on a string. Deep fake reform will be dismantled as and when the puppet masters determine it's time for it to leave the stage. Then they'll introduce something else. The Support Act, Advance UK, your favourite Tory insurance company, led by Ben Habib, himself of Pakistani origin. I'm sorry, he's mixed race, isn't he? His father was Pakistani, mother was English, apparently. Well, there you go. It's amazing, isn't it, how the man who spent little Tommy all these years railing against Pakistanis, now he's following one. And if that doesn't tell you just how dumb his fanboys are, perhaps nothing ever will. But we know what we're dealing with, and we know what we have to dedicate ourselves to, and that is building nationalism, a bedrock, a solid bedrock on which to build and expand for the near future, for when these grotesque organisations fail, and fail they will. And when they have, it's going to be pandemonium, believe me. And it's going to be delightful, I think, really, providing certain people hold their nerve, and I'm not sure they can. We'll see. See, I'll hold my nerve because, crikey, come on. Just look what I've been through and continue to go through, and I'm still here. I'll hold my nerve. It all depends if other people can hold their nerve. And if they do hold their nerve, it's going to be an absolutely catastrophic year for Tommy Robinson and Team Tommy. And it's all by design, and it's all of their doing, and it needs to be done. It needs to be resolved. We need to dismantle Team Tommy to set the right in this country free of these Israeli agents, these grifters, these criminal junkies, and their lowlife. And as for wishing me dead whilst in a hospital bed, well, just think of the karma heading that person's way. Enjoy it when it comes. I will. Good night.